Hello and welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we have with us Heather Hubbard. She is someone I met when I taught an Akashic Records class online at the beginning of the pandemic, which honestly feels like an entire lifetime ago.
Forever ago.
Yeah. Heather is the owner of a Heathen's Touch, a metaphysical shop in Fulton, New York, and she does healings and intuitive readings. She's definitely a seeker, and we are very excited to talk with her today. So, welcome to the show. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Thanks. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, tell us how your metaphysical path kind of got started.
So really, I was a massage therapist for quite a while, and I started to notice that I was taking on a lot of people's emotions because, when you're alone in a room with someone for an hour, they tend to spill their guts to you.
Yeah.
So I started taking on a lot of that, and I found one of Amy's classes. This is Amy D'Angelo of Amethyst Reiki. I found one of her classes on Facebook that was personal energy management, and I was like, oh my God, I need that. And so just by taking that class and like going to her free gatherings every month and meeting other people in the metaphysical community, it kind of got me into like, oh my God, this stuff just makes so much sense to me. Like, this is my people and where I need to be.
That's awesome. And now
So
you and
that's
Amy
how,
are kind of business partners.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not really business partners. She leases the whole building and I rent my store space from her, but like we're planning on staying together even when we get a new building because our lease is up here at the end of the year. We're planning on staying together because we've realized that our businesses are very cohesive. I have the store, she has the classes, we both do services. It just, the partnership works really well for both of us. So
Awesome.
that's where we're at right now.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
What about like your early experiences with paranormal things?
Um, so the earliest things that I can remember experiencing was at my grandma's house growing up because she had this huge, like, two-story house and she lived only in the upstairs. The downstairs, like, had previously been a grocery store. I think her family ran the grocery store and there was still pictures on the windows of like bread and candy and things like that. But the downstairs was basically just like storage, and so she lived in the upstairs, and um at nighttime, like looking down the stairs to head outside, like I didn't want to go down them stairs by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad would be like, "Oh, go out to the truck. I'll be right behind you." And I'm like, "Mm-mm." Um, and there was one time, I think I was maybe like 8 or 10, somewhere around there, but I spent the night at my grandma's, and to this day, I swear that I saw a shadow of a person on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And like just the way the light shone in the window, there was a shadow of a person there. And I turned to look, there was nobody there, and I turned back around and the shadow was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it was my grandpa's spirit.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it scared the crap out of me. Um, and honestly, like I always had kind of like weird feelings when I spent the night at her house. Like it was just always a little off for me. And interestingly, also, for a long time, I had dreams about her house. Like after her passing, I had dreams about her house all the time, but it was the kind of thing where like it's her house, but it doesn't look like her house.
Yeah.
I had a lot of those dreams, like literally at least a few times a week for like years.
Wow.
Yeah. But really, it was, now that I'm thinking about it, since I started getting into metaphysical stuff more, I haven't been having those dreams. Yeah. So I don't know what that really means, but it
That's
is what it is.
I used to have
Mm-hmm.
dreams similar to that. Like, one of my grandmas is still alive. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the other grandma who had passed, like I would have dreams for years after she passed about being in her house and like
Yes.
as if she was still alive, but like in the dream I knew she had passed on and like there was things about the house that were the same but different. So that's interesting. I've had
Yeah.
very similar experiences.
Yeah. In my dreams, usually I was the only one in the house, but there was also like a spirit that lived in the house.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember her name now, but like in the dreams at the time, I knew what her name was and like stuff would move and I'd be like, "Oh, Sally, knock it off," or whatever her
Yeah.
name was, like I would talk to her in the dreams.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's weird too, because I always felt like there was something in her house, like at the time when I
Right.
was younger, but then in adulthood in the dreams, there actually was a spirit in the house.
Yeah. Oh,
Which talking through this with you, it's like something I never actually thought of before. So this is pretty cool.
that is cool. It's like putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Yep. You just gotta like vocalize it and talk through it and like, holy crap, it makes sense now.
Yeah. That is interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so your strange story that you wanted to share with us was something that happened to you at
Yes,
work. What happened there?
it was. Excuse me. So the building that Amy and I share, there was a spirit who lived there. His name was Josh. And so I went to use the downstairs restroom one day, and this was like a double stall restroom. And the outer door didn't really like shut all the way on its own. It was one of those ones where it stops like right before the door frame and just stays there. So I'm inside the bathroom and like I heard something that I thought was a sound in the other room. So I went and washed my hands. I'm leaving the bathroom and like the door is not only shut all the way, but the handle is locked as well. So I'm like, what the heck? So I unlock the door and like go to walk out and I swear I heard a little chuckle from the back of the bathroom behind me and I'm like, what was that? So I'm like standing there like what the heck is going on right now? So I walk back upstairs and I'm like, Amy, are you messing with me right now? And she's like, why? What? And I told her what like the bathroom door was locked and stuff. And she like busts out laughing and whips out her dowsing rods. And like at that same time, I could feel Josh like at the bottom of the stairs, like cracking up. And I'm like, wait a second. And she's like, yeah, that was Josh. He totally locked you in the bathroom. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Seriously. But he was cracking up about it. She was cracking up about it. And then, like, once we put the pieces together, I was also cracking up about it. So that was my like firsthand experience with a spirit that I had.
That is funny.
Yes.
How do you guys know like who the spirit is, that his name's Josh?
Okay. So Amy had been renting a room at this building like previous to when we took it over and everything. And there had been three spirits at the building. So she had already been acquainted with them ahead of time, and one left when the owner moved out. One had decided to pass on, and then Josh was still with us for a while. And, he actually used to hang out with me quite a bit when I first started the store because I was at the building by myself a lot. So he would just like hang out and watch movies with me and stuff while I was working. And so then he was like our building guardian for a while. And now that we're leaving, he like moved on to a different building to hang out with some other people.
Hmm.
But so Amy was acquainted with him previously, and then I became acquainted with him.
Okay. So like kind of your information about like his name and stuff like that, that's coming from Amy.
The name, yeah, she was actually doing a free program on numerology at one point, and so I'm sitting there like listening and like writing down and trying to figure out my numerology, and I just feel this like incessant like tapping on my shoulder. And so I got out my pendulum because like I don't hear spirits or anything. So I like got out my pendulum to communicate, and basically he wanted me to figure out his numerology as well. Um, so between the information from her and then trying to figure out his numerology, um, he was actually like a 20 somethings gentleman that was in Desert Storm. And I don't know why he ended up back in Fulton if he was from around here or something, but he's is still 20 something.
Hmm. Yeah,
So there was info about him coming from a couple different places.
interesting. You mentioned a couple of different tools. Do you mind explaining to like our listeners that might not know, like,
Oh,
what are dowsing rods? What are pendulums? How
yeah,
do you use them?
absolutely. So my main thing that I use is a pendulum, which there's different materials that can be on the end of the chain. All the ones that I use are a gemstone that's on the bottom. Um, and you can just ask it yes and no questions. Sometimes it'll give you a maybe, sometimes it doesn't give any movement at all. But that's my main way of communicating with spirits or guides or whoever.
Now, for you, are you
Um,
using like a metal chain of some kind? Are you using twine? What is your
oh yeah, mine
medium on
has a
that?
metal chain. It's a metal chain with a gemstone, like a pointed gemstone. Some of them will have like a wooden thing at the bottom. I don't know what you would call it, like a wooden shape. Or there's copper ones, or
I was going to
like
ask if
I've
it was copper. Yeah,
yeah. Like the chain on mine is just like, I don't know, regular metal necklace chain type of thing. But the copper ones I've seen do also have a copper chain. There's also I've made some pendulums before that's just like a drilled stone like you would use for a necklace or something, and I've just put those on a chain and that works out pretty well.
Hmm.
Um, Different materials will work for different people. And like dowsing rods, I've never had any luck with dowsing rods. And what that is it's a piece of copper that's in like an L shape, and then the short end of the L is inside a tube, so it's like freely spinning. And you have two of those, and usually if they go outwards, it's a no, and if they cross or touch, then it's a yes. So it's kind of the same with the yes or no questions. Some people think that you can get like faster responses because it's like freely swinging instead of like having to wait for it to change directions like with a pendulum. But like I said, dowsing rods don't really work for me.
Yeah.
Um, so those are the main kinds of tools that I use or am aware of.
That's interesting. So the belief is that it's like the spirit is moving it, like moving the pendulum
Yeah,
or moving the dowsing rods. Okay.
right. Well, I mean, with a pendulum, the way my understanding is that it's coming through your energy. So I really think what it is that if you have the gift, your body is actually receiving the information, and then the energy is coming through to the pendulum, like through you.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's not actually that the spirit is moving the pendulum, but it's just the way that you're receiving the information.
I was gonna say that because I've wanted to work with pendulum,
Okay.
but I honestly feel like it whatever answer I get is the answer I want to get, right? So it's like
Yeah.
in those moments, like I'm not, and maybe it's like I don't do a good enough job connecting in spiritually
Hmm.
before I use it, but it's like in those moments I'm like, I'm totally like, because I've had it like where it's like, no, that is not the thing, right? But I got a
Yeah.
yes for it because I really wanted that answer to be yes. So like I'm like, I can't trust pendulums because it's just telling me what I want, you know what I mean? But I know for
I
other
think,
people like you, it works really well.
yeah. I think there is that potential for your energy to like override
Hmm.
what you're receiving, like if it's something you are feeling really, really strongly about. But for me, when it's a communication, situation, I think there's less of that happening, like less of your energy that's going into it because you're looking for like the real answers and not just like what you want to hear.
Right. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. So I
Yeah.
think it's just like if I'm going to try to use that tool, I need to just approach it in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah. Like more objectively.
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
sure.
When you specifically use those, like for example, a pendulum, are you typically
Yeah.
doing it for someone else or for your own questions, or
Usually I just
both?
use it for myself. Like I have had a couple people ask me to like ask a question for them. And basically, like, I feel like my answers are coming from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So before I even ask a question for someone else, I'll be like, hey, can you like feel the question that Joe is asking? And if it says yes, then I'll go ahead and ask the question for them. But if it's like, no, like I'm not feeling that question, then I'm like, okay, sorry, I can't answer it for you.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, usually I just use it for like my own purposes. So, like, you can use a pendulum for so many different jobs. And I know, like, we've talked about communication so far. Like, I use it to communicate with my guides mostly. Um, but you can use a pendulum to like program crystals for specific purposes. You can use them to like program candles for spells or like activate spells. Um, I think this is a little bit more rare, but some pendulums can find lost objects.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
haven't had luck with that, but I know other people that have. So they can do a lot of different types of jobs.
This is the first, I don't know a ton about pendulums, but
Okay.
this is the first I've ever heard of like you can actually
Oh,
program crystals and
yeah.
candles. So it's like a way
Yeah.
to set intention. So like what
Yep.
would that process kind of look like?
So usually if I'm like programming a crystal or a candle or something, like if it's for a spell, like I have my incantation ready ahead of time, or whatever my intention is for that crystal or whatever the case is, and usually it'll just spin in a circle around that item,
Hmm.
and then when it's done doing its job it'll just like slow down and slow and slow and slow and then stop.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I'm done with my job, I'm stopping now.
Yeah.
A rabbit hole that I like to go down with people is when every once in a while you'll have somebody mention in this kind of stuff or other kind of context the
Mhm.
idea of spells of some kind. So I'm always curious where different people are in like us, in terms of magical tradition.
Yep.
Are you a specific practitioner of a specific thing, or do you draw from different sources? Like where are you on that in that realm? I'm always curious.
um so I feel like what you're talking about is like if I'm identifying with a specific religion or tradition or something
More
like that.
tradition. Generally, I
Okay.
try to stay away from the religion word for
Yeah,
bad connotations for a lot of people,
exactly.
including me. But you know,
Uh,
there's definitely traditions to draw on, and some people like to do that. Some
right,
people like to do their own thing, make their own
right.
way. I'm always curious to where
Yeah,
people stand.
I'm definitely on a make your own way kind of path, um, which is why my business is called A Heathen's Touch. A heathen is someone who doesn't follow any specific religion or path. So that's me. I'm a heathen. So, I do energy work, I do spell work, but it's not really based on like Wicca or like pagan practices or whatever. It's just kind of like how I've learned to do things and the ways that are working best for me.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, like if I'm trying to work on a spell or like figure out some way to practice or something, then I ask my guides, like I whip out my pendulum And I just be like, hey guys, like this is what I'm trying to do. And, you have to do yes or no questions with a pendulum. So, I just ask a series of yes or no questions and like figure out the best way for me to do that based on the information that I'm getting from them. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. It's
Okay,
just
cool.
super interesting to me. There are no two people with the same answer, and I don't think that's a
Yeah,
bad thing. I
absolutely.
don't think that there is really anything that anyone needs to have as a specific like single thing. You know what I'm saying? I think that
Agreed.
a lot of times where we start to go wrong as people is when someone decides that there's a single thing that you need to like
Yes.
go through. What do you
And
mean by guides?
okay, I just want to go back for a
Sure, of
second here.
course.
Like I have talked to people also who like want to identify as Wiccan or they want to identify as pagan. And I feel by like giving yourself that label, you're kind of limiting yourself in like the growth of your abilities because you're like, I have to stay within this practice instead of like branching out and trying other things that might work better for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my personal thought on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting point for sure.
Thanks. What was your other question? I'm so sorry, I forgot.
You're good.
A couple times you mentioned guides, and
Oh yeah,
no,
guides.
that's another thing that no two people seem to have the same definition of.
Yeah.
So I always kind of try to ask clarifying questions on that kind of stuff.
Okay, so this is a thing that could totally be a rabbit hole as well.
We love
Um,
rabbit holes here.
okay, cool. Um, so a lot of my beliefs about guides actually come from what I've learned from Amy and her classes and stuff. Um, but I feel like people have spirit guides, like actual human souls who either shared a lifetime with them or um, a family member that they had in this lifetime. So an actual human a human spirit who like existed on the planet can be a guide. Um, deities or like higher energy beings that people would consider to be like gods or angels, I think are pretty common guides, especially when you start getting into working with energetic gifts. You usually have higher energy beings that are like helping you develop those and being like, yeah, like you're able to do this, like let's work on that. So that's like a short answer without getting too much into like rabbit hole and deeper stuff.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Talk to us about like energetic gifts and like what are some of your energetic gifts?
Oh man. So you mentioned at the beginning here that I took the Akashic Records class with you.
Mhm.
So that's something I've actually been working on quite a bit.
Awesome.
And like just in working with that, I've like figured out like different gifts that I have that actually help me with that work. Um, so timelines is one of them. Like I have the ability to like access different timelines and it helps me with like the past life stuff. Um, there's some like clairvoyance, which is how I'm like receiving information. Claircognizance, like just knowing the information and receiving it in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll usually receive like a keyword or an image that kind of helps me gather the information that I need. Um, what else? Soul channeling, helping like get into people's Akashic records and accessing their past lives and things like that. What else? Man, there's a bunch of them and you're putting me on the spot right now.
No worries.
So
We
those are
can
the ones
edit.
that are like coming to mind at the moment.
Yeah, no, those are pretty interesting gifts. You said
Yeah,
like in the Akashic Records, you're doing a lot of like timeline work and like access
yeah.
past lives. Does it ever go into like future potentials for you, or does it stay kind of in the past?
Um, that hasn't really come up for me because the majority of the work that I'm doing with the Akashic Records is helping people heal um from negative patterns and like past traumas from childhood or past lives. And a lot of it has actually come to be patterns that have repeated through like multiple lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of been my main focus in my work. And it's not even that's where I wanted to focus, but that's just kind of how it's happened for me, which I'm okay with because I enjoy like getting in there and like helping people with like the big stuff that helps them like live a better life, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. It's powerful stuff, you
It
know.
really is. And especially like I've really been doing a lot more work with people over the last like year or so. And like the more you do the sessions, the more you realize like how it actually works, like how you're getting the information and like how the pieces fit together. And like sometimes it still blows my mind. Like if I figure out like a new way to like, you know, break that cycle for somebody, I'm like, oh my God, like that's amazing. It's so much different to do it that way or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Good for
Yeah,
you.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. I love it too.
So I do actually have another funny story about a spirit.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so we had a psychic medium do a gallery reading at the building, and I was actually working at the store that night, so I was there while his event was happening. And after I got home, like I was sitting on the couch watching a show with my husband, and I smelled canned corn. I'm like, what the heck? Like, that's so random. I'm like, did you make corn for dinner? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm smelling canned corn. And he's like, I don't smell anything. So I'm like, all right. So I just like brushed it off and ignored it. And then like 5 minutes later, I smelled the canned corn again. And I'm like, what the hell? You really don't smell the canned corn? And he's like, actually, I can smell it a little bit now. And I'm like, this is freaking weird. So I like ripped off my necklace to use it as a pendulum. And I'm like, hey, is there somebody here that's giving me the canned corn smell? And I got a yes. So just asking a few more questions, it turned out that it was a spirit who had wanted to get a message through at this gallery reading and like followed me home because like clearly I could like smell what they were giving me. So they're like, oh, this person can pass on my message. And I don't hear the messages.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, hey, I can't do the thing that you're wanting me to do. I can't hear your message. I can't pass it on. So, like, you're literally just going to have to leave my house for now. And then next time there's a gallery reading at the building, you can pop in and try again. But, like, I can't do the thing. And then I
Wow.
didn't smell the corn anymore. It was so random. I'm like, who? Why canned corn?
Right. It was
I don't
significant
know.
in some way.
Apparently.
That's wild.
So here's something that I find to be pretty funny.
Okay.
And I don't know if Brittany remembers this or not, but like 3 or 4 recordings ago, this is not even something that I don't think we've even released this episode yet, but we were talking about the 5 Claire senses.
Yeah, yeah.
And I made a joke that I don't know anyone who's ever said, well, I have Claire aliens and I can smell ghosts. And I had made the joke that I want somebody to come on here and tell me a story about
There you go.
someone who smelled a spirit.
Canned corn.
And here, canned corn. Here we are. We haven't released that yet, have we, Brittany?
What
I
did
think
you
that's
call
2
it
weeks from
though?
now.
What did you call that sense?
Claire aliens. I might be
Oh,
mispronouncing
okay.
that. I've
I
only
know
ever
it
read
as
it.
Claire fragrance.
Oh,
I like that better.
that's
That's
easier
easier
to
to
say.
say.
There you go. Claire fragrance is smelling the things that you don't see.
Funny.
Interesting. That's hilarious for sure. I think that's the episode that's come out in 2 weeks. Is the one that
Oh,
we talked
okay.
about that. I'm pretty sure.
All right.
But no one could have heard me say that other than the people that were on the recording.
That's true.
So here we
I
are.
didn't know it.
You
So
didn't.
that's funny that I just was like, oh yeah, I have another story, and then it ended up filling in the blank for you.
You sure
Yeah.
did.
Interesting
Another one of
little
them funny things.
kind of synchronicity thing there.
Yes, I love it.
That is so random, like canned corn, but it must have been significant to that spirit for somehow.
Apparently,
And yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, why do you think some spirits like come to some people, maybe not others?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I don't do a lot of like spirit
Yeah.
communication. But a lot of people believe in the whole unfinished business thing.
Hmm.
So like if that soul hasn't accomplished what they needed to accomplish in this lifetime and they haven't crossed over, then maybe they're hanging around here because they feel like they still have a job to do.
Hmm.
I don't honestly have the answers on that one.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I'm happy to talk about, but I don't have the answer.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody really does. It's just interesting
Yeah,
to think about, but like that spirit obviously like felt like you were, I mean, you are a channel in some ways, but just not the
right.
way that a
Not how they needed
stereotypical,
me to be.
right, a stereotypical medium who can like
Right.
download the information and speak it,
Exactly.
and so they're just like, let me latch onto you, please help me.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to pendulums for a moment,
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I think I saw on like Facebook, you had posted
Mhm.
something about like a pendulum that
Oh yeah.
portals.
The Labradorite.
Well, first, a lot of people listening might not know what portals are. So if you could explain
Oh.
that, and then
Oh,
like,
did I say something about pendulums and portals?
I feel like you
I
did.
know I posted about a Labradorite pendulum that needed a home.
Yes, I feel like that's the post I was referring to.
Okay. I don't remember specifically mentioning portals, but basically, I had a bunch of pendulums out for sale at the shop, and like one caught my eye one day. And as I looked at it closer, I honestly think it's a Lemurian quartz pendulum.
Hmm.
Like it's a smoothed off stone, so it doesn't have any of the ridges on there, but it's got that slight bit of cloudiness. Um, so I asked it, I'm like, hey, are you Lemurian? And it said yes. And I'm like, oh my God, this is supposed to be mine for Akashic record work. And it was like, yes, I want to do that. So I was like, okay, this one's mine. And then I absolutely love Labradorite. So I noticed one of them had a tiny little rainbow flash on it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Labradorite. So I grabbed it and just like asking it a couple questions, it did not want to be out for sale and like handled by a bunch of different people. And I'm like, okay. So asking it other questions to find out like, what did it want to do? What kind of person's it looking for and stuff. And basically, it wanted to work with dark energies, like getting rid of entities, like just in general, getting negative things off of our plane of existence. Um, so I actually ended up finding it a home the same day, and it ended up being a guy in New Jersey who's like a friend of a friend, and she's like, "Hey, ask if like this guy is the right person." So I asked this guy's name, and it was like, because it was saying no to everybody, because I had a bunch of people messaging me from this post, like, "Hey, is the pendulum for me?" And it's like, no, 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 no. And then I said this random guy's name and it was like a huge yes automatically. And I'm like, okay, well, that's the guy. So I sent it to New Jersey.
So, like, as I'm hearing you talk, like
Yeah,
the pendulum or like maybe the crystal itself, like
yeah.
they have their own consciousness. That's like what I'm hearing from
Oh
you.
man, I guess so. It's weird. Like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a consciousness. Man, I don't even know. They definitely have different personalities. So I guess a personality would go along with a consciousness. Huh. I don't know, but like they have names.
Hmm.
Like I've got like 4 or 5 different pendulums and they all have their own names and identities and like they all prefer to do different types of work.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say they have a consciousness.
That's how, like, I just have so many questions today, apparently. So how do you figure out a pendulum's name?
So basically you can just be like, hey, do you have a name that you would like me to use for you? And if it says yes, you can just be like, okay, does your name start with A, B,
Okay.
C?
So process of
Or
elimination type thing.
yeah. Or
Okay.
if you have like a board out in front of you with like the letters on it, it'll like point to the right letters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways you can figure it out. But yeah, they all have different names.
Am I wrong in this, like, because I think I may have like mashed some things up from that post, but am I wrong?
Okay.
Like, can pendulums work with portals?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Yep.
what is a portal exactly?
So basically a portal, it can either be a passageway like between dimensions, or it could be like pocket dimension. You can use a portal as like a vacuum to get rid of negative energies and it just like goes out to the universe. Um, but basically a lot of portals are going to be neutral, which is fine. They don't do anything bad, but a lot of times neutral portals can be turned negative by entities who are trying to enter our plane.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we don't want. We don't want negative portals.
Yeah. So like what are these negative entities that try to like enter our plane?
They're, energetic beings, like in some religions, people might call them demons.
Hmm.
Um, but it doesn't have to be demons. It can be like any kind of negative energy being, and they just come and try to mess with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not the energy that we want here.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No. Okay. So like just like working with it, it can kind of clear it or can close it. Like,
Um, yeah, so you can use the pendulums to close the portals. Um, like I don't know if all pendulums would be able to do that job, but some of them probably would.
mm-hmm,
Like I have one pendulum that specifically only wants to do energy work, so I'm sure that she'd be fine to do that kind of thing.
mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you for letting me go down the pendulum rabbit hole with you because it's like
No
I said, it's not
problem.
something I know very well. I have a couple pendulums, and like I
Okay.
said, my experience is really just like it tells me what I want to hear, and that's not super helpful. You know?
I use them for so many different things, man.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's awesome.
Well, my business is a Heathen's Touch, and it is in central New York, specifically Fulton, which is near Syracuse. Um, um, like I said, the lease is almost up on our building, so I don't have a physical location at the moment. So selling of items is specifically at vendor events.
Okay.
I do a bunch of different energetic services that can be done over distance.
Hmm.
So I do Reiki, Sakim, tarot readings, Akashic records for pets.
Awesome.
Yep. And I know you're gonna ask. So Sakim is the Egyptian version of Reiki. So you're still using universal energy to heal the person, but you're using Egyptian symbology instead of Japanese. And it's very heart centered. So you're receiving the universal energy through your heart chakra and sending the healing to the other person through your heart. And the healing is really appropriate for the upper chakras. So that's what Sakim is.
Scheme, it's a very interesting energy. I liked it a lot. I
I
haven't
like
done
it.
much with it. I kind of like learned it when I was in a a period of transition, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, but it's definitely something I want to come back to and kind of explore a little bit more.
Usually when I'm doing any kind of energy work, I always call in Reiki and Sakim
Mhm.
simultaneously. And I always feel the Reiki come in like right in the palm of my hand, and then I feel the Sakim come in like at my fingertips.
Okay.
So like my whole hand is kind of buzzing, and that's how I know that I'm receiving it all.
Yeah,
So I think that's pretty cool.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So those are the things that I can do, and it's over distance. I mean, all of it's available over distance or in person. I am going to be on a web series called The Blocks,
Okay.
BLOX, which is basically a competition show for business owners.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So that filming is in January.
Uh-huh.
I don't know when it's going to air on their website. It's betablocks.com.
Okay.
Um, but I'm really looking forward to that because before I opened my business, I had no idea at all about running a freaking business. So I'm really excited to get in there and get some like official learning.
Yeah.
And like after that happens, we'll be having a new location. So it's like
Yeah.
Awesome.
everything all in a nice little packet.
Everything's coming together for you.
Yeah, so that's another pretty big announcement.
That's an amazing announcement. That's super exciting.
Yes.
How
Very
did you get
cool.
hooked up with that?
Oh my God. So I saw an ad on Facebook about like something about entrepreneurs. I don't even honestly remember what the ad was,
Hmm.
but I was like, sure, I'll fill out this questionnaire. Like, I want some entrepreneur education. And so I got through like a couple stages of the interview process, and it's like, oh, something about filming a show. And I'm like, a what now? And so I just kept getting to the next round and the next round. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing the thing.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting.
That's super exciting. Oh my
I know.
goodness. Yeah, I'm with you of like starting a business and not knowing the first thing about business. Like,
Yep. I've just been making it up as I go along. I
yeah.
keep track of everything on freaking Excel spreadsheets.
Hmm. Yep.
That's it. That's my thing. Spreadsheets and
That,
paper.
that's about all I have too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, our strengths are not in the business acumen. It is more in the, the
The
spiritual,
energetic
the
stuff.
energy, yeah, like
Yeah.
the being around people thing, but yeah, not the
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I wasn't ever really confident in my peopling skills either.
Hmm.
But it turns out that in the right setting, I can be very peoply.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes, being able to talk to people about weird stuff, it
Yeah.
works really well for me.
Yep. Us
It's
too.
great.
This is why we're doing
Well,
this.
weird things are
There you
the only
go.
things worth talking about. So,
There
Absolutely.
you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
I can't do small talk, but I can talk about, the nature of reality and, portals and
Uh, I just had a human design reading yesterday.
oh, that's the
That
best.
was freaking crazy.
What's your design type?
Generator.
Okay, a
What's
manifesting
your
generator.
design?
Manifesting
Yeah.
generator. I think Jonathan's a
Okay.
generator too. Do you remember?
Okay. That's the most common one.
Is it?
Yeah. We generate all the energy for all the real special people.
Yeah. No.
Something
well, that
really
makes sense.
interesting, something really interesting is that one of my, ah, I have my notes. I'm never going to remember the proper wording, but one of my main, like missions in life or
Oh.
whatever is shock.
Oh.
Like it's my purpose to bring like shock to people, which is really interesting because if you see me in person, I have like purple dreadlocks and a bunch of tattoos and like talk about ghosts and pendulums and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm like totally fulfilling my purpose right now.
I love it.
I love it.
That's awesome.
I know. She's like, "Oh, you're very shocking." And I'm like, "Dude, I totally am shocking.
That is me.
It's
I'm in
me.
you're in alignment with your design, which is perfect. That's
I
what you want to
am.
be.
It's
Yeah.
great." So like I'm already totally doing the things that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, I can't succinctly tell you what human design is. My like how I think about it is it's like almost like astrology on steroids,
I
you
was
know?
totally just gonna say astrology on crack.
Yeah, like that's how I think of it. It's but it
Yeah.
doesn't use any of the zodiac, signs or anything like that. It's completely different. But you do figure out your birth, you do figure out your
Yeah.
from your date of birth, your location,
Yeah, your birth chart.
all of that stuff. But it just gives you kind of like what your design type is, and like there's so much to it, like that I don't
There's so much.
understand at all. But yeah, somebody we just had on, Emily Jean, she does human design readings, and she's like really her business is Awakening Ground. She's really into it, and she helped me understand. She explained me to me so well that I was like,
Uh,
what the hell?
yeah.
Like
It's kind of scary.
a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But that just means that you're fulfilling your purpose too.
yeah. Oh, it was mostly like the not good thing.
Oh, well, that sucks then.
Well, like I just actually somebody like on a Facebook group I'm in, they were like, what have you learned about yourself since learning human design? And I'm like, that I want to do all the things all the time, and that I have to slow down and not just like jump and be like, yes, I'm doing this thing right now. I have to slow down and be like, wait, do I really want to put my energy towards this? Because it's always immediately a yes for me. And then like 3 minutes later, it's like, wait, what did I just commit myself to?
Yeah. That was one of my things too. Like she showed me the wave and it was like straight or like a gradual angle up and then like straight down and then like a gradual angle again. And I'm like, dude, that's totally how I do things. Like I jump into it, like I find something I'm interested in, I'm like 100% in automatically. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, meh.
Yep.
I don't know if I really care that much about that after all.
Yep.
After I put like $100 into getting all the supplies to do this thing. Oh my God.
It's so
I've
fun.
done that so many times with different things. It's ridiculous. And she's like, okay, so based on your human design, it's just saying that maybe you take a couple days before you give somebody an answer on something. And I'm like, I guess I could try to do that.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes
sense. Yeah, I'm totally like a spur of the moment person. Like, I think I'm just gonna drive like 2 hours today so I can go to such and such metaphysical store. Okay, let's do it.
Yep. I love it.
Yep.
It's interesting. Anywho, I love this conversation because we went in so many different directions, but it's
love it.
The heathens conversation, right? We're not
It really is.
We are just
exactly
and talking about.
We started out on topic with the spirit stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so many different rabbit holes you can take on these metaphysical things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it all lines up in different ways, and it's amazing.
It is. It definitely is.
And very fun.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. It's been a really good time.
Yeah.
Very much. So good luck with the show. Good luck with the move and, the new place, the new home for your business. Can't wait to hear. And when I'm back in New York, I'll definitely come visit and check it out. So
awesome.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
With us.
Absolutely.
No probs.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.